I'm not going to be able to get any screen grabs this time because of the glare on his glasses,
Ah,
and he's looking away from the camera.
okay. We are back again. One of our viewers requested that we go back live. Also suggested that the glare in my glasses, which I was very self-conscious of earlier, was causing possibly viewer clarity as far as what I look like. Yes, as you can see, what I look like without my glasses. Earlier, I spoke of that we as Americans, that we're all created equal, that we've been forced into divisions and separations by those who wish to rule us. And throughout this whole ordeal, we have endured. Now, it's our turn to make our demands perfectly clear. And some of those demands are as easy as bending over and tying your shoes, okay? But our first demand was that we get 100% health care. And that situation, that solution is as easy as your Social Security card. And that we get to also a demand that we get to choose our leaders and representatives democratically without the influence of outside money, corporations, super PACs. And that also that we as a people, that we also have the ability to have an education in scientific theory or works or discovery. But that goes for all forms of education. But scientific is a very key point of mine if we are going to work with and conquer the environmental problems that we are faced with today. I went on to tell that how because of the divisions and our leadership is allowing us to separate into groups, into sects, into divisions based on our color, where we're from, the language we speak. If you're here in America and you plan on staying here, you are an American like me. Now we can stand together or we can be separate. Let our voices be joined. I will be representing the people of the state of Washington. I'm running up against an incumbent, a two-term incumbent, Democrat incumbent, that voted against Bernie Sanders with her super PAC, her super vote, super delegate, voted against the will of the people, as most super delegates did throughout the course of the 2016 election. I left the Democratic Party because I did not want to be kowtowing, being told how to talk to the people of Washington. I wanted to be able to take the voices that I heard and hear what they said so that they could do what? Have their concerns, their dreams, and their hopes voiced in Washington. I am that voice. People have said, Dave, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Well, I'm a Marine Corps veteran. The highest rank I received was E5, a sergeant. I learned how to lead men and women. I learned how to get the job done. And with your voice, your directions, this old Marine knows how to follow orders. Let's do it, people. Come on. We can have some fun. They already don't know what to know when they're presented with the truth. And we have volumes, don't we? So you, the people of Washington, and those neighboring states to us, as well as across this country, please come to my website, help support my campaign, help me get that voice of yours to Washington. I'm here. You can contact me. I will respond. Visit me at my.com. Visit me on Twitter. Visit me on Facebook, on LinkedIn. But most of all, let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what you want to be heard. Thank you for this time. See you soon. Now, if there are any questions, my campaign manager is here at the keyboard, and he will alert me as to when a question comes up. And so I'm hoping to hear from you. I like all the little emoticons going across there. It's so much like a parade. It's really nice. Thank you. I like the hearts too, and the thumbs up, and the smiling faces, that kind of stuff. So yes, let's have some fun with this thing. Too long we've suffered the dregs of politics, lies, buffoonery, threats and such. We need to get that out of the politics. People who are there now have forgotten that they are your public servant. That's right, your public servant. I know that we gave up servitude a long time, but when you take the mantle of working for the public, you no longer work for yourself, but for the good of the people in your state, your district, your congressional area, whether you're federal or state or even a local mayor or council member. You take that responsibility and you take that with full knowing that you're there to serve the people who voted for you or appointed you. You're there to serve them. Get the job done. Make sure that there are good jobs, clean water, clear environment. Make sure that they can get to their homes and even buy a home with good wages, fair, equitable wages. Make sure that you have a healthy constituency. Why? People shouldn't have to be sick or ill or not seek medical treatment because they can't afford it. And as I mentioned in the first segment, it's as simple as your Social Security card. That's how simple it is. But thanks for asking me back to do a follow-up segment on my original one. I took my glasses off. I can see. They're a little bit harder to read, but that's all right, I have a good campaign manager, and my staff is growing. We do need more help, and we would appreciate it if you could contact us and tell us what you can do to help us out. We need people on vote banks. We need people making just general introductions door to door. We could use some fundraisers. We could use, most of all, just support staff in getting the word out. I mean, I want to hear what you have to say. And the word that's getting out is what I've heard from you. And that's the way it's always going to be. That's what propels me. That's what pulled me out of retirement, was serving the people. Because after 2016, there was nothing there. And this past notification from the U.S. federal judge about DNC dismissal of their fraud suit, disheartening, but also heartening in a way that if you think you got a lawsuit against the DNC, file it. That's what they're saying. File it. Because it was only kicked out on a technicality, so that makes it wide open. So have some fun with it if you're an attorney. I encourage you to explore how it would benefit your area, your constituency. But that has been left open so that that avenue to go after the DNC for their corruption is there. And but if you haven't left the Democratic Party already, I encourage you to do so. I'm not telling you to join my party because I don't join. I'm not to a party. I'm an independent candidate. That way I can serve the people and not a corporate interest. Oh, while I'm on that, I do not take super PACs or corporate money. I think, yeah, that's the way we got it worded. No super PACs or corporations. Is there anything else that we'd like to talk about tonight? We have a couple of.
The Barada says hi.
From Thailand, a good friend of the family, Bill Prada. Hello, how are you tonight? Well, I should say this morning because it's getting morning there. It's about a 12-hour time difference. And I'm not sure whether she's in Thailand now or China. She is quite the chef. If you ever get a chance to sit down to one of her meals, it will be an experience worth having. If you go to click on her site, she has all kinds of dishes that she has prepared. Very good, very tasty. Okay. So the people are starting to come in, and we're looking forward to more questions. And I'm going to be sitting here waiting. And if you have a question, ask it. If not, I kind of look zombified, don't I? Okay, it's so we can have some fun. I'm not all shirt and tie. Okay, I'm like you guys. My campaign insists that I wear a tie, and I count out. Sorry. What do we have, Greg?
Thomas asks, what's your stance on Citizens United?
It was an atrocity, but you know what? When the Supreme Court ruled that corporations are people, you remember that, don't you, Thomas? Okay. Well, because corporations are now people, I have the ability to find a good prosecutor and prosecute with extreme prejudice against the board of directors, who are the corporations, because the board of directors are what make the decisions that corporate entity does. So now we have names that we can attest to charges, those people that are on the board of directors. Okay? So don't you just love it sometimes when the Supreme Court falls in it and they can't get out of it? Yeah, they really fixed themselves this time, didn't they? And I'm looking forward to pursuing that aggressively once I get there. Okay, what do we got?
You like that one? He said, sure do, unfortunately. And that's a very good point.
Well, I'll tell you what, Thomas, I am not afraid. I worked in the Judge Advocate Division of the Marine Corps. I sat with the military judges a couple years during my tenure in the judiciary. I learned volumes of things, etiquette, procedures, just the whole judicial gambit. And I found it a very rewarding situation. And that is what helped me come to the conclusion that I said about arresting the board of directors. When we arrest them, we can also freeze their assets. Yeah, that's one of the things that go with arrest, especially when you're in a criminal investigation. And it may take a little bit longer for it to unfreeze, considering how they froze Americans' wages for so many years. So yeah, tit for tat, only we get to play tic-tac-toe with them, okay? And guess who gets to put the X on the paper? We do. So thank you for that. Thank you for that follow-up there, Thomas.
What's your? I guess he wants to know what's your position on environmentalism and green energy.
Ooh, I like green energy. I like environmental safety. I do not like what DAPO did to the people at Standing Rock. That was an act of war. I don't like the fact that people in Flint, Michigan have been without fresh water. Yes, they may be rebuilding it, but guess what? Those people in Flint are suffering, and the suffering has already been exacted upon them. And that exacted upon them is the fact that, one, the children were poisoned, elders were poisoned, but most critically with the children in the developmental stages. And so they're going to be forever wards of the state as far as taking care of them, because it is the state of Michigan that is responsible for that happening. The city of Lansing is responsible for that happening, and the atrocities that have been committed to people in the name of water. In fracking, I don't believe in that. It's a hazard to our aquifers. I don't believe in water pipes, oil pipes going underneath our rivers or any place close to our aquifers. Canada wants that oil to the Gulf, they can pay us more than what it's worth, plain and simple, because no one's going to clean up the messes. We know that from what happened with the big oil rig busting out there in the Gulf of Mexico. I still won't eat the fish from the Gulf of Mexico because they did not clean it up. Once the shellfish and other vertebrae are contaminated, it's really hard to restore that. And I know that Louisiana and the Gulf states are doing their best to do it, but there's still that air of contamination that the Exxon did not clean up, or Chevron did not clean up. It doesn't matter what company it was. Every time there's an oil spill, it's a different company, and it doesn't matter. They never clean it up. I will say that if you're going to invest in stock, I really would push the Palmolive Dawn detergent, because that's what they seem to use as their prescribed cleanup methods for all oil spills. So if you have a few $100s to put into the stock market, I would do it in Procter and Gamble's and specifically Dawn, because as you can tell, I'm a little bit upset with all the oil spills. My belief on this is, if you can't contain it, if you can't store it safely and away from the environment, you have no business using it. I think that we need to get away from carbon-based fueling altogether. That includes liquid propane gas. People seem to forget this country is really good, really great. I think, go back in your history books, 1939 to 1946, even into the early 50s. What do you have? You have a country, we were not exposed to all the tragedy that happened in Europe and Asia. We were the arsenal, sadly to say, to the world. And then later, under the Marshall Plan and other reconstructive plans, we rebuilt our enemies. We rebuilt those towns and cities and everything that were destroyed during the war. We can't recover the loss of life, but we can make sure and do our best from now on not to have that happen as far as loss of life. And so,
And not to see the military using the environment.
but I want to stay on this environmental thing before I get the use of the military's part in the environmental sequel. There are young inventors out there. There are people out there that are pushing the envelope as far as green technology and capturing the solar rays, the wind energy, the tidal, geothermal. Those things need to be explored. But because it can't be sold at the gas pump, they don't want anything to do with it. There are designs out there that airplanes can fly across the English Channel on battery power. There are ships out there that are on battery power and other not but environmentally sound platforms. Mercedes-Benz here this past year released a light-duty truck similar to the UPS trucks we see on our roads today, with a 200-mile range. No emissions, battery powered. More and more we can go and shift. But as I was getting back to the war story back in World War II, our economy turned around. We went from making typewriters to Jeeps to trucks to tanks, uniforms, manufacturing food and canning food and shipping food and water, and all the supplies, the blankets and clothing that was needed by those people who were trying to survive the war. We did that. We turned it over. Like now, we are a powerful nation. We can do that. We can do the same thing by creating a war on carbon emissions. We can do that just by saying that we're at war with it, and we want green tech. We want battery powered. We want cars that do not spit out pollution. And especially anybody in the LA or other metro areas across this country will tell you it's no fun. Seattle, the I-5 corridor is no fun. A lot of stop and go traffic, a lot of gas being wasted, a lot of emissions. So the military, how does it fit into this? Well, instead of having a military, an empire, an army for an empire, we redistribute, we reassign, we reallocate those forces into humanitarian efforts so that we can react immediately to disasters that people are affronted to across the world. Peace, no war, humanitarian. I mean, I would love to have had a badge or a ribbon that I participated in a mass humanitarian effort. Okay, we have some other questions here. You'll have to help me out here, buddy, because
Sure.
I took my glasses off from a previous comment about removing the glasses.
Let's see. So we've got April asks, do you support a job guarantee to improve the lives of workers and restore balance in employment?
I think that if we support our unions, I think that our unions will help secure that. Our unions across this country gave us a 40-hour work week, gave us sick time, gave us all kinds of things that we take for granted today. We can thank our unions organization for that. Unions will also develop the middle class, which has been decimated since 2000. There was on a downward trend starting in 1978, 1979, 1980. Yeah, it's kind of stabilized, but wages froze from the mid-80s until current days. For the working person, it has not changed. $10 an hour is not very much money to support your family. That means you have to get another job, and your wife, if married, has to get another job. And if you're not married, you're living in a one-bedroom apartment by yourself on $10 an hour. It's not easy. I've been there, okay? So I think if we support our unions, I think we'll start to see a fair and equitable type wage come across. We won't have a problem with getting the minimum wage. And if the minimum wage were adjusted for inflation, it'd be about $23.75 now. Not a bad hourly wage, but probably inflation and everything else would kick it up, and it'd be like making $10 an hour. It's amazing how our economy has a way of adjusting their profit line. We need to stop that. Next question, please.
Let's see. She mentioned you were talking about cleanups, and she says Kalamazoo was terrible. They did a half-assed job. Thomas asks, follow up on a question. If someone like Jill Stein had been elected last election, would you have supported a Green New Deal?
I'm unfamiliar with the Green New Deal. I supported Jill Stein in her run for presidency. My choices were Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton, and Jill Stein was number 3. And I didn't feel strong enough to vote for the Libertarian. But I voted for Jill Stein because a lot of the Green Party's concepts touched on my own beliefs. And she was a newbie to me. And so even though she had done it before, she was new to me. And therefore, I looked at her stance, some of her things that she was saying, and I believe that if all the Bernie-crats and everyone else in the presentation would have been better, I think we would have seen Dr. Stein in the White House. Next question, please.
I guess just to elaborate on the idea of a Green New Deal is, the FDR style, renewal of a jobs bill, with the promise of green energy and green jobs as sort of the
I touched on that a little bit when I was mentioning the many different ways of the green technology, alternative power sources. But yes, there are so many avenues for us to look at. I mean, when kids in Africa with nothing more than a broken down windmill can produce enough energy to pump their water or provide themselves a little bit of electricity, this says what you can do with a little, how much they did, and how much a difference they made. And this was just a young man, a young teenager. And so I'm thinking that we have some of the greatest minds in this country. We have the greatest ability to innovate and tag ourselves as to who we are and our direction, that we are lacking without the conviction. We have to have that conviction to get these things done and demand these things. This is part of my platform. I'm not pulling punches, people. I mean, I am a United States Marine by attitude, but I'm a father and a grandfather. I'm a citizen. I'm a neighbor. I'm the guy who's going to help you push your car off the side of the road so it doesn't get smashed by somebody. I'm the guy who's the person you can come up and talk to. Um, I don't have any preconceived notions about anyone. We're all in this thing together, all of us, no matter what our backgrounds are, no matter what our direction in life is. And those of us who are trying to live a healthy life, to live an abundant life, and sharing it with our friends and our families, and going even further out so that we can, in fact, reach other people. So, in fact, we enrich our own life. It makes nothing better for me to see someone smile just by, good morning, how are you today? Beautiful day, isn't it? It's amazing what a little kindness towards someone else can do. And I think that when you do exhibit that, your day also brightens up for a moment, if not the entire day. But we owe it to ourselves to stand with our convictions. And I am strong enough to do that for you. I'm not going to do anything that's going to hurt people that I live around, that I'm serving, that could also come around and end up hurting people in another part of the country. As a U.S. Senator, you make decisions that affect the whole country. And it's important that those people making those decisions take into consideration this pork belly stuff has got to stop. One bill, one issue at a time we vote on. No amendments or nothing like this unless we're going to repeal something completely, like your paychecks. Okay? You hear that, Congress? You hear that, Senate? Repeal your paychecks. You've been on the take long enough, and I'm sure you could get by without hurting too bad with all the corporate money that comes into your pockets. So you can see I'm a little bit strong on making sure that our Congress and our Senate is held accountable. And with your help, that's what will happen. I'm going to be the loudest voice in the Senate. I'm going to call them out when they are wrong. I'm going to be nice about it, but I can also be very firm about it. Okay? You're my voice. You're my people. We're in this together. Okay? Let's do it. Period. Let's just do it.
All right. So Thomas has. What's your stance? Oh, first off, he gives you a round of applause on support our unions.
Thank you, Thomas.
And then here he's got what's your stance on marijuana prohibition?
Marijuana prohibition, okay, in a nutshell. A lot of people have been incarcerated and lives destroyed because of a simple act of possession, something that is not a hazardous substance. Yes, marijuana can kill you if this 80-pound bale falls on your head and breaks your neck. Yes, it can happen, okay? It can happen. Not to say that I'm witness to it, but I also know physics a little bit. I used to throw hay bales when I worked on the farm, okay? 60 to 80-pound bales of hay up in the hay mound, okay? Have to put it up dry enough so it doesn't catch fire through spontaneous combustion. But no, the only hazard that marijuana has is the fact that it has none. Tobacco, my biggest vice. I smoke tobacco. I hate it. It is a nasty habit. It is a legalized addiction, whereas marijuana has no addictive quality or traits to it. It is proven time and time again that different strains of marijuana, THC and the CBDs, all have different properties, and properties meaning as in medicinal to therapeutic uses. Marijuana can be ingested. Marijuana can be woven into shirts. It can be used as paper. It can be used as construction materials. And it grows and reproduces and replenishes faster than a forest does. I can harvest marijuana for 18 years, and in 18 years I might be able to harvest that tree that I planted the same time I planted the marijuana. Okay? But I've harvested the marijuana 18 times versus one time, maybe, for that tree. So prohibition and everything, yes, that needs to be changed. The only one who's making big money right now is the pharmaceuticals, okay? They're not in business to cure us. They're in business to treat us, to increase their profit margins. Okay, yes, you may go to the doctor and you may get cured of your cold or the infection that you have. But if you have something long term, you're going to be a patient forever. And I hope that it doesn't happen. There are many homeopathic ways out there. Please investigate them. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. Make sure that you get a good consensus before you start doing any type of herbal therapy. But the prohibition of marijuana needs to end. Look at the states that have enacted medical and recreational use. One, the tax dollars are rolling in for the state. Two, crime rates are down. And there are veterans and others that are being helped with disorders such as PTSD. And PTSD doesn't mean that you had to be in the military. Some people got it from working in the emergency medical teams, firemen, policemen, college students, abused spouses. So, I mean, there's a lot of benefit going for the end of prohibition. And I will be one of those proponents. I encourage you to check me out completely, okay? That's all I'm going to say about that. Check me out completely. Do a history of David Strider and see what you can find out. I think you might find some interesting things out in my past. Okay? Really, really. Nothing bad. You're just going to find out some pretty cool things, all right? And so I encourage you to do that. But I do wholeheartedly endorse the legalization of marijuana. I believe that it can help us with some of the things that we need. Education, okay? Since we're not going to get any help anywhere else, we might as well legalize marijuana and make sure that the medicinal traits of that plant are expounded on and also researched even deeper. Next question, please. Yes, I have smoked marijuana. Okay. Let me get that out there too. Yes, I have smoked marijuana. All right. Next question.
Looks like that's the last question right now. Got 5 viewers out there. I'm sure someone can come up with a question real quick.
It doesn't matter what it is. It really doesn't. Thomas.
You're getting more applause.
All right. Thank you, Thomas. All right. Thank you. And applause to you folks for showing up tonight and asking those questions. I hope that I was able to answer them. I am passionate about issues, especially ones that affect the social fabric of our neighborhoods, our cities and our states, our nation as a whole. I'm just an old-fashioned guy with new things around me. And what I mean by that is the technology. I mean, how many of you remember rotary phones? I didn't think so. But those of you who went to grandma's and grandma still had one, yes, I had those rotary phones. I had the rabbit ears and the aluminum foil on the TV. I remember when I got my first FM radio, and it was from Japan. That was the latest craze. First Walkman stereo or any type of recording, tape deck, anything that was new electronically. I got to see it all evolve, and I'm grateful for that experience. And my life experiences, I'm going to try to use those to propel us to the Senate floor, where your voice will be heard like a mighty roar. If you ever watched movies with Marine drill instructors and things like that, yes, I do have that. I do have that voice that projects out. I do have that voice, and it's clear. And I'm looking forward to when they cut my mic off, that they still hear me talk about you. Well, I guess we're going to call it. It's getting. I don't have my glasses on. I don't want to. If somebody's taking a screenshot, I don't want them to get the. See what I mean? Okay. So, if you can bring me up to date, Greg.
Yeah, that's the skinny.
Okay.
Like we're gonna call it a wrap, I guess.
Sounds good. Also, let your friends and family know, your political cronies and everything else. Let's all get together here. We're shooting at least one broadcast from this Facebook page.
Oh yeah, you should make the. Go ahead.
But we're looking to make this a broadcast page every night with highlights of the day or positions of the campaign. If the highlights of the day are overwhelming and thought-provoking and not fake news, we'll say something about it. But most of the times we're going to be on here answering your questions, giving a few points on our platform, and hoping to hear from all of you. So
you should announce that we're trying to raise money for the to hire a fundraiser.
Oh, good God Almighty! Yes.
Right. Campaign news.
Okay, this is campaign news, and this is breaking news. Okay. As I mentioned, I came out of retirement. I'm a disabled veteran. I'm on pension and Social Security. And as of this moment, I've been financing this campaign solely on my own resources. However, in order for me to reach everyone in the state of Washington, I need professional help. And I've got it. But guess what? I have to pay for it. Okay? I need to make sure that these unemployed people who are coming to work for me are not getting the short end of the stick. So I need your help so that they can make sure that our voices are taken all the way to Washington. Not to worry, we have complete transparency in everything we do. Anything that I say or do that you don't seem to approve of, I want to know, because I'm not out here to offend anyone. I'm just out here to give the truth and the voice. And if I may have misspoke, correct me. Okay, I'm not the most politically correct person in the world, but I'm sure a hell of a lot politically correct than what our current president and his Republican Party are. Okay? So remember, go to DaveStrider4USSenate.com, leave your comments, and if you can, let me know how you can help me out here in Washington. And if possible, okay, I know these times aren't easy, but if possible, donate whatever you can. But most important, let me know what's on your mind. I'll get the word out. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.